I always thought love was something like a fairy tale. You walk down the street, live your ordinary life, and suddenly the world stops. You meet someone, and from that moment, nothing is ever the same again. That's exactly what happened to me. His name was Andri. I remember that evening in every detail, the cool wind, the streetlights reflecting on the wet asphalt after the rain. I was hurrying home after classes when I accidentally bumped into a stranger. I looked up to apologize, and my eyes met his. Deep, dark eyes, as if they were hiding an entire universe. "Careful," he said with a slight smile, and in that moment it felt like I truly heard my own heart for the first time. It was beating so loudly I was afraid he might hear it too. We started talking, at first just a few casual phrases, then a joke, and suddenly I realized I didn't want to leave. Me, someone who was usually shy and reserved, felt oddly light and free next to him. The first weeks of our acquaintance were like a dream. He texted me every morning, asking if I'd had breakfast, if I was cold. In the evenings, we could talk for hours about everything: favorite films, little things from daily life, even our deepest fears. I felt as if he was the one who finally understood me, who saw something in me that no one else ever did. With time, our meetings became daily. I woke up thinking of him and fell asleep with the phone in my hand, rereading his messages. My friend teased me that I was glowing, but I didn't care what others thought. I was happy. I was in love. His touch felt gentler than anything I had ever known. His words warmed me even in the coldest days. When he held my hand, I believed this was forever. I imagined our future together, traveling, a small apartment with morning coffee, maybe even children. It felt like destiny had given me the greatest gift, a person I could spend my whole life with. I didn't know then that it was this very faith that would make my fall so unbearably painful. At first I noticed nothing. His smile was still warm, his words still tender. We still walked together in the evenings, he still hugged me when I felt cold. But sometimes something new appeared in his eyes. A barely noticeable detachment, as if he was somewhere far away even while sitting right next to me. One evening, when we met after his work, I felt this change especially sharply. He held my hand, but his fingers were cold, tense. I tried to joke, to make him laugh, but he answered in fragments, as if his thoughts were elsewhere. "Are you okay?" I asked. "Yeah, just tired," he said, avoiding my eyes. I believed him because I wanted to believe. Then other details started to show. He used to reply to my messages instantly, even when busy, but now sometimes hours passed in silence. I sat staring at my phone, watching the minutes turn into hours, feeling anxiety grow inside me. And when he finally wrote back, "Sorry, busy," I forced myself to hide my disappointment. I explained it all to myself in every possible way: work, exhaustion, problems he didn't want to share. After all, he was my Andri, my person, the one who couldn't possibly hurt me. But one day I noticed something else. We were sitting in a cafe, I was telling him about my day, when suddenly he grabbed his phone and started typing to someone. His face lit up. A small smile, a sparkle in his eyes. He typed quickly, not even listening to me. I fell silent. "Who's that?" I asked cautiously. He didn't even look up. "No one, just a friend." I nodded. Inside, something twisted painfully, but I swallowed it down. I didn't want to seem jealous or paranoid, because love is trust, right? Yet from that moment, I began to catch him in small lies. He could say he stayed late at work, while I'd see photos of him with friends on social media. He could forget our plans, then apologize so convincingly I forced myself to forgive. Every night, lying in bed, I asked myself, maybe I'm just exaggerating. Maybe everything's fine, I'm just too sensitive. And each time the answer was the same: he loves me, he's just tired. Everything will be okay. I clung to those words like a lifeline, not realizing that the wave was already rising and about to crush me completely. That evening, I went to see him without any suspicion. We had agreed to meet after his work, watch a movie at his place. I even bought his favorite chocolate pastries to surprise him. In my head, a thought kept spinning. Maybe tonight we'll be like we used to. Maybe I'm just overthinking everything. I approached his building, and just then she walked out. A girl, tall in a bright red dress, with that same carefree smile I once thought belonged only to me. She fixed her hair, pulled out her phone and started typing, and at that very moment he appeared in the doorway. My Andrew! He came out after her. Carefree, relaxed, wearing the same smile I knew so well. He didn't even notice me at first. Only when I froze in front of them, clutching the bag of pastries so tightly it nearly tore, did his eyes meet mine. Our eyes locked, his smile faded. "It's not what you think," he began. I laughed, bitterly, almost hysterically. "Seriously? And what am I supposed to think? That she's the pizza delivery girl?" She glanced at me quickly, a little guilty, and walked away. And we were left standing together. A silence thicker than the night itself hung between us. "Listen, I didn't want you to find out like this." His voice trembled. "Didn't want to." My words flew out like blades. "What did you want, Andrew? For me to keep waiting for your messages? To look at you and believe you were tired, busy?" He dropped his gaze. And in that moment I understood. Everything I had been afraid to admit was true. He had betrayed me. He had lied. And the worst part was, he didn't regret it in the way I had wished he would. My heart clenched. I could hardly breathe. Memories swarmed my mind. Our first dates, his tender words, his embrace. And now it all seemed fake, tainted. "How long?" I managed to whisper. "How long have you been doing this?" He stayed silent. That silence told me more than any confession could. I turned and walked away. He called after me, followed me, but I didn't look back. I knew if I saw his eyes again, I would break. And I couldn't break in front of him. That night I walked home crying harder than I ever had before. Tears blurred the street, people turned their heads, but I didn't care. I carried an emptiness inside me that hurt worse than any wound. My world had collapsed, and the cruelest part was, it had been destroyed by the very person I once thought was my entire universe. After that night, the world stopped existing for me. I woke up in the mornings and couldn't understand why. The sun rose, people hurried about their lives, but I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling that my life no longer belonged to me. One image replayed endlessly in my head, him stepping outside after her, his smile, her red dress, my trembling voice. How long? His silence. That picture haunted me even in my sleep. I tried to find an explanation. Why? What did I do wrong? Didn't I love him enough? Was I too naive? All our happy moments now seemed like lies. I scrolled through our photos on my phone, my heart twisting with despair. I saw his eyes, his smile, and wanted to scream. How could he look at me like that, say all those words, and still be lying? The days turned into endless hours of pain. I sat in my room, didn't go outside, ignored my friends' calls. My phone kept flashing with his messages. "Let me explain. I made a mistake. Please don't push me away." But I didn't open them. I knew every word would only tear my wounds wider. Food lost its taste. Music became unbearable because every song reminded me of him. Even silence cut into me because in it I could hear my own thoughts. I searched for comfort in memories. I closed my eyes and imagined our walks, his embrace, the way he touched my hair. And then the pain hit harder because I knew all of that was destroyed. My life had split into before and after. There were nights when I sat on the floor, hugging my knees, and sobbed until I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was losing myself, like a part of me had died that evening outside his building, and yet, deep inside, a tiny spark remained. Somewhere in me, I knew I had to survive, at least for myself, because if I let this betrayal destroy me completely, then he would truly win. But that realization was still far away. The path to it began with endless tears, with a heart that refused to believe it could ever beat calmly again. Weeks passed. Time dragged slowly, like thick honey, but eventually the pain grew less sharp. It no longer tore me apart every minute. Now it sat somewhere deep inside, quiet, pulsing, but no longer fatal. I started going outside again, at first just to the store for bread, then for walks in the park. The world slowly began to regain its colours, the green of trees, the blue of the sky, children's laughter on the playground. I caught these little things as if seeing them for the first time, and every time I thought, I'm still here, I'm still alive. Friends slowly pulled me back to life. They dragged me to the movies, brought pizza, joked even when I didn't laugh. And then, one evening, I suddenly noticed that I had actually smiled. Just for a moment, but sincerely. And that little smile felt like a victory. I no longer opened his messages. He kept writing for a while, but I knew if I gave him even a fragment of attention, I'd fall again. And I couldn't allow myself to fall once more. So I learned to ignore, I learned to put myself first. I started keeping a journal. I poured onto paper everything that hurt, all the resentment, the memories, the screams I couldn't say out loud. And with each word written, I felt lighter, as if I was removing stones that had long weighed down my chest. Of course, sometimes he still appeared in my dreams. In them, we were happy again, laughing, holding hands. And waking up after such dreams was the most painful. But gradually, even the dreams began to fade, to lose their colours. His image was dissolving, disappearing. I learned to live without him, first step by step, day by day. And then I realized I no longer thought of him every minute. I no longer searched for his face in the crowd. I no longer waited for him to come back. His betrayal broke me, but it also made me stronger. It taught me to value myself, to never let someone else become my entire universe. Because my universe is me, my strength, my dreams, my future. And now, when I look in the mirror, I don't see a girl who was betrayed. I see a woman who survived the storm, a woman who cried through the nights but managed to rise and say to herself, I deserve more, I deserve a love that will never betray me. And maybe it still lies ahead, but even if it doesn't, I am no longer afraid. Because I have found the most important love of my life, the love for myself.